books that I've read, and once again, my hopes for what I want to read in 2026. Now, I will admit that I did not read all of the books that I wanted to in 2025, but I did get through a few. So, let's get started with one that you may have seen in a video. Tales from the House of Manigilla. It Came from Beneath the Bed by James Howe. Or Howie, I'm not sure. Anyways, I did a video about this book for Halloween. I'm trying to remember to link it, but it was a really, really cute story about a little dog named Howie wanting to write a scary story or an adventurous story. And I thought it was quite a fun read. Simple, of course. It was very large print. Of course, a children's book, but it was a lot of fun. And I got some plans coming up for this, maybe for next year, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Next, this is a big one, but Tales. Treasures from the First 50 Years of Doctor Who, The Vault, by Marcus Hearn, and foreword by Stephen Moffat. Obviously, a big Doctor Who book. I've had this for quite a few years at this point, since it's talking about the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, which is just had its 60th anniversary a couple of years back. This is a bit of an older one, from around 2013, but I had never actually gotten around to reading the whole thing. I had always just browsed through some of the amazing pictures in this, because it has a lot of photos, behind the scenes stuff as well. So, this was a lot of fun to actually read through. I really enjoyed reading through it. And just this was a treasure trove. Treasures. This one was a quick read, and while it was okay, I wasn't huge on it. Clockwork Planet. This manga follows a Naruto, an amateur mechanic who finds an automaton in the shape of a girl has crashed into his house, and he's kind of stuck with her. It was okay. Obviously, it's book one of this series, but I don't think I'm going to pick up book two. This has been on my shelf for quite a while, but it was a decent, quick little read. Yeah. Next, we have some physical representations of the audiobooks that I've read, because I reread the first two books of the Ink World series, Inkheart and Inkspell. As you can tell, these are my personal copies from back in the day, and as you can tell, not only by the stamp on this, but the cover of the Inkheart book, these were picked up around the time of the 2008, 2009 movie. So, they're well worn, well loved, and I listened to them on audio because I wanted to reread this series before reading the most recent book, which is on my TBR. So I'll get into that in a bit. So, Inkheart and Inkspell, if you're not familiar, is about a girl and her father who have the ability to read characters out of books by reading aloud. An example used in the film is Maggie reads The Wizard of Oz, and out pops Toto the dog. this little short story collection. It's definitely taken a while, but that is because there are some of these stories that I like to really just sit with after I read them. Something about a short story collection just makes me go a lot slower. As it was a book that I wanted to finish up in 2025, and I didn't read a lot of the books that I wanted to finish in 2025, but here are some other ones that I finished on audio. Excellent Chance to Fall in Love by Anne Rose. Oh, I loved this one. I've listened to this audiobook over the Halloween season, and it was the perfect little spooky, magical, queer love story about a woman who is forced to run a, basically it's a spirit Halloween, essentially, one of those little pop-up Halloween stores. And she is forced to be manager. She got cursed to be manager of this store, so she only basically exists while the store is around. So basically for about 3-4 months she exists, and the rest of the time she just doesn't exist, and so she only gets to be around during this store. So active time. And she falls in love with this other woman in the town. And yes, this other woman isn't huge on Halloween, but the two of them fall in love, and well, magic happens. It was a wonderful little magical Halloween-y read. I would definitely recommend it for those looking for a fun little queer romance, a fun little lesbian romance during Halloween. Now, another one I read was one that I've been meaning to read for quite a while now. I've been wanting to get into V.E. Schwab's writing, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue was an amazing way to do so. Another kind of magical, like fantasy-esque story about this woman who is immortal, and her immortality comes with a cost, in that she is always forgotten by people when they leave her. So every night is like a one-night stand. Every time she goes to like put in an order at a cafe, the waiter will take her order and then go away and just forget that she exists, forget the order exists. And when they come back out, they're like, why is this person here? So she's always forgotten, and I think that is such a cool concept for a book, for a story, and just the way that she and other characters intertwine with one another. Like there are other characters, like this man, one man in many years, ever since she has been cursed, there's only been one man who has ever actually remembered her. And so seeing the two of them interact and finding the reason behind it, as she is constantly visited by the figure that she made the deal with, essentially like death. She made a deal with death, and every once in a while he pops back up, and he's quite a fun character as well. Definitely worth a read if if that sounds interesting to you. I also got to read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Apparently this is the first book in a series, which I didn't know when I first got it. I just thought, oh hey, that's cool, about fae, and like an encyclopedia. That's kind of it's a really fun, like, I'm not usually into books that are written as a journal or a diary or any of that kind of thing, but this one wasn't too bad. Like, I actually kind of want to read the rest of the series on this one. we'll see. But yeah, it was a really fun, interesting character, kind of like ditzy journalistic type. I like it. It was good. Emily Wilde, Encyclopedia of Fairies, was very good. I definitely recommend it for those looking for like a magical creature kind of story. The next one on my list is one that I mentioned in the last video that I had just finished reading, was Querceniera by Alex Crespo. This was an okay book. I wasn't huge on it. It was alright, I guess, for like a YA kind of book. It's like, oh hey, yeah, you're coming out and your family wants to throw you a coming out party, but you're not sure about that. I don't know. It was kind of mid, I find. Or that's my memory of it anyways. I also mentioned that I read the latest book in the Sir Callie series, Sir Callie and the Witch's War, which I enjoyed just as much as the rest of the Sir Callie series by Esme Syme-Smith. Great book, great little middle grade kind of series about this non-binary knight and their friends. I also got to read an absolutely remarkable thing by Hank Green. This is another one that has been on my read-to-read list for, honestly, years at this point. And I really, really enjoyed it. The mystery of the Carls, these statues that show up all around the world and trying to solve this mystery. And like the YouTuber aspect of it, which Hank Green, if you know Hank Green, you know he is obviously very, very well versed in like YouTube and that kind of thing, that kind of sphere. So he's kind of the perfect one to write a book like this, and it was quite good. I haven't read the sequel. I'm not entirely, my heart isn't set on reading the sequel yet, but I do have it on my TBR. I also got to read Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses by Kristen O'Neill. This was a really interesting book. I've had a while to sit with it. At first I thought it was amazing. It was this great look at chronic illness and even just like online communities for chronic illnesses, which I think is great. I think that was a great aspect to it. I like the representation. I feel like it could be a little bit more to it, a little bit more meaty. But it was interesting, and I like the little twist on like lycanthropy being seen as a chronic illness, because let's be honest, it would be if it were real, right? I also read the first book in the Amari and the Night Brothers series. The Amari series by B.B. Alston. It's almost like an alternative to Harry Potter, sort of. Same kind of kid finds out that they're from a family of magic users and ends up going to school to learn magic, which I think was portrayed fairly well. It has a protagonist who is a person of color, which was good. I think I am definitely gonna check out the next book in this series, but I can't speak to the series as a whole. I thought it was good. I thought it was good for a start, though. These next couple of books, I believe they were just standalones. Bianca Torre is Afraid of Everything by Justine Bucello-Winans. I hope I pronounced your name right, but anyways, this was a book with, honestly, a main character who I honestly thought had almost like somewhere between anxiety and OCD, this like list of fears. That was like a main part of the story, which I thought was a really interesting character concept. And she eventually discovers, she discovers that her neighbor has been murdered, and she's trying to find out what happened. Like, she saw someone running away from the scene of that crime, and the whole story is her, like, trying to figure out this crime and, like, get people to believe her, that kind of thing. It, again, another book with good queer representation, a character who is discovering their own queer identity. At first it was like, oh yeah, I'm just a little lesbian sheep. That's like a thing that she keeps saying, is she's a lesbian sheep. She doesn't, because lesbian sheep don't really do anything. They just kind of stand there and wait for something to happen instead of going forward and initiating any sort of relationship, really, which I think isn't, as a non-lesbian, I think is a funny way of approaching the lesbian stereotype of nobody's going first. But that's just my thoughts as a queer person not in the lesbian community. But I thought it was a good story. Bianca is both strong in her lesbian identity, but also discovering other parts of her own queer identity. I love the different parts of queer identity that kind of like mishmash together in this. It's great. Next one I read was Speculation by, I'm going to butcher this, I'm so sorry, Nisi, N-I-S-I, Shawl. It was a short book, it was a sweet book, but I feel like the magic in it really just didn't go far enough. It was just a bit weird and mildly confusing. Basically, another lead person of color, this girl gets glasses from her grandparents as like a replacement for her own, which broke, and she discovers that these glasses allow her to essentially communicate with ghosts, I guess, and also give her wishes, but they have to be formatted in a certain way as a kind of like, I wonder, kind of like speculation. But I feel like this magic system wasn't established strongly enough. There was part of it that it needed more. It was a very short story. It was very quick, which I suppose explains why it may not have had the time to just really marinate and get expanded upon better, which I think is a shame. It's a really good concept. Now the next thing on my list that I ended up reading was a non-fiction book for a video that I have been working on for a really, really long time. It's still in progress, but I read the book A History of Children's Television in English Canada, 1952 to 1986, by Frederick B. Rainsbury. It was very informative. It was a great book about Canadian television history and specifically the children's side of that. It was quite informative. I loved it. It had like I said, just a great source of information. I borrowed it through essentially the Internet Archive. I had a copy of it, and I borrowed it from there to read it and reference it for the video, which I wish I knew when it was coming out. It's still a large work in progress. I've been working on it for the better part of a year now. But it was a good book. It was a really interesting book. If you're interested in television history, would definitely recommend checking it out on the Internet Archive. Just a few books that I read were the next few books in the Young Wizard series, namely A Wizard's Holiday, Wizards at War. So I only read 2 books in the Young Wizards series so far. 2 more books, I should say. There are 2 wizardry. Like, wizardry is almost like a computational language, which is so cool. Technically, while I'm recording this, I am still reading it, but I expect to finish it again by the end of 2025. And that is The Borrowed Life of Frederick Fife by Anna Johnston. Basically, this old man gets confused with another person and basically takes over this other person's, who was dead, but he's taking over this dead person's life because it's so much better than his own, and just shenanigans ensue. I look forward to finishing this audiobook by the end of 2025, and it's just like a standalone book, but I think it's gonna be a fun one. Now, with that being said, what are some books that I want to get into in 2026? As I said in the beginning of this video, I wanted to read more in Bunnicula, and I found this secondhand copy of the first Bunnicula book. Bunnicula, a rabbit tale of mystery by Deborah and James Howe. Now, I said that I wanted to get into the Bunnicula series, and I think this would be a fun read for another Halloween. So, look out for this in October of 2026. I think it's going to be a fun read, and it's my first real dive into Bunnicula. I think this is going to be fun, because it says, "Beware the hare. Is he or isn't he a vampire? Before it's too late, Harold the dog and Chester the cat must find out the truth about the newest pet in the Monroe household, a suspicious-looking bunny with unusual habits and fangs." Yeah, so I thought it would be fun. I got this from a free little library. I don't know if I'll give this back to the free little library, because I love tales of rabbits, and I love vampires, but I think this would be a fun little exchange, because this was a good book, but I think it can go on to another home. I want to obviously listen to the audiobook of Ink Death by Cornelia Funke. I want to listen to the audiobook of this. I've already read this book itself many times since it first released. This is my personal copy I've had since childhood. It is very near and dear to my heart, but I want to listen to the audiobook of this, and then I want to also read The Color of Revenge. I might get the audiobook of that, and also I'm going to get a print copy to go with the rest of this series as well, depending on how well I like it. But I can't imagine that it won't be just as amazing as this trilogy. The other three books, I can't imagine that the fourth is going to be worse, because it's Cornelia Funke. She's proved herself many times for this book. It says, "Caught between the covers of a cursed story. Ever since the extraordinary events of Inkspell and the enchanted book Inkheart drew Maggie and her father Mo into its chapters, life in the ink world has been more tragic than magical. The fire eater Dustfinger is dead, having sacrificed his life for his apprentice for reeds, and now, under the rule of the evil Adderhead, the fairy tale land is in bloody chaos. His characters far beyond the control of Fenolio, their author. Even Eleanor, left behind in the real world, believes her family to be lost between the covers of a book. Facing the threat of eternal winter, Mo inks a dangerous deal with death itself. There yet remains a faint hope of changing the cursed story, if only he can fill its pages fast enough." It even says here that Ink Death, the captivating final tale in the Inkheart trilogy. Yeah, it does say here, the Inkheart trilogy, and I swear I remember in library copies of the original Inkheart book that it was said to be a series, and then by the time I read Ink Death, or that Ink Death was coming out, it was then changed to be a trilogy. I don't know. I I'm not gonna go on the same kind of quest that Mo went on to go and find copies of Inkheart to prove this theory, but this is what I recall way back in the day, around 2007 to 2009-ish. Then another book I want to read. I think you might have seen me unbox this, but it is Chuck Tingle. This is my first book by Chuck Tingle. I want to read some of his other collections, especially. He is known for queer characters, and obviously he's known for his smut as well. But I want to check out the asexual books, or the asexual representation that he has at some point, and do videos on that. But this is my first actual book that he has done, because the other books, or the other stories, the other stories are all short stories. This is the first novel that I have read. I'm going to have read from him. But it says, "Welcome to a God-fearing community with a heart of gold. Nestled high up in the mountains is Camp Damascus, the self-proclaimed most effective gay conversion camp in the country. Here, a life free from sin awaits, but the secret behind that success is anything but holy. From Chuck Tingle, beloved internet icon, comes a searing and earnest horror debut about demons the queer community faces in this country, and the price of keeping secrets and finding the courage to burn it all down." And then some other books that I plan to, or hope to read in 2026. I also want to still read Phantom's Ghosts and Other Heartbreaks. I haven't read that yet. I really fell out of love with the ebook format in the last year or so, and year or two, and Phantom's Ghosts and Other Heartbreaks has just been a really bad victim of that, I suppose, because I got that in an ebook format, and I really want to read that. I just haven't been able to. Obviously, I also want to read the next in the Percy Jackson series, which I also didn't get to. I think it's Triple Goddesses. But some audiobooks I want to get to are God Killer by Hannah Kaner, which says, "Enter a land of gods and monsters, soldiers, mercenaries, secrets, and wishes." The explosive, internationally best-selling fantasy debut, a new trilogy for fans of The Witcher and Gideon the Ninth, which I'm slightly afraid of because I didn't like Gideon the Ninth. It was actually a DNF for me earlier this year. But it says, "Gods are forbidden in the kingdom of Meridian, formed by human desires and fed by their worship. There are countless gods in the world, but after a great war, a new king outlawed them, and now pays god killers to destroy any who try to rise from the shadows. As a child, Kissen saw her family murdered by a fire god. Now she makes a living killing them and enjoys it. But all this changes when Kissen is tasked with helping a young noble girl with a god problem. The child's soul is bonded to a tiny god of white lies, and Kissen can't kill it without ending the girl's life too. Joined by a disillusioned knight on a secret quest, the unlikely group must travel to the ruined city of Meridian, where the last of the wild gods reside, to each beg a favor. Pursued by assassins and demons in the midst of a burgeoning civil war, they will face a reckoning. Something is rotting at the heart of their world, and they are the only ones who can stop it." So, yeah, the first in the, I believe this is a trilogy. I also want to read Alice the Dagger by Ashley McLeo, the first in the Wonderland Court series. It says, "They call me the Dagger. I'm an assassin, and that's all I've ever known. So when a white rabbit tells me that loved ones are waiting for me in the Wonderland Court of Fairy, it's surprising. And then I learned something even more shocking. The Red Queen stole the crown of Wonderland from my mother, murdered her too. The Queen single-handedly created my reality of death and blood and murder. While that's devastating, I can handle those emotions. It's what I've been trained to do. What I don't know how to handle sings in the streets because people ask for an either's sake. A fairy who knows more about my past than anyone, including me. A good man who could crush my heart if I let him in, despite my claims that I work alone. Hatter and two nosy little pixies insist on sticking with me. Only one thing is for sure. With them by my side, assassinating the Red Queen will be unlike any other job I've ever tackled. The Run of Glass meets Alice in Wonderland. Alice the Dagger is a YA fantasy. So, I have not read the Throne of Glass series, but something I love is Alice in Wonderland. You might have seen my Alice in Wonderland collection video, which I'll try to remember to link here. But yeah, I want to read that as well. And I think that's all I'm going to commit to this time around. I feel like I committed to a lot of books last time, and I didn't end up really reading them. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to commit to this time. Although I will, of course, have my 2026 reading challenge up and see how many books I can read. Usually, so far, my sweet spot has been between 50 and 20 books a year, so we'll see. But were any of these books ones that you've read or have wanted to read? Do you have opinions on any of these? Let me know down in the comments. As always, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I wish you